Welcome to an emergency gridiron podcast. My name is Michael, and today we're diving headfirst into a crazy day one of NFL free agency. I've got the latest Packers news and some major trades around the league. Follow me on Twitter at msteps_, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Gridiron podcast below. To start off with the Green Bay Packers trades, they made a trade first, which was kind of surprising in my opinion. They traded for a position that they needed, which was a linebacker. Now, they got Zaire Franklin from the Indianapolis Colts, but they traded Colby Wooden, a defensive tackle, away to get Zaire Franklin. Now, Zaire Franklin's a guy that I've heard of. I was kind of familiar with him, but I didn't know I wasn't keeping tabs on him all that much. Last year in 2025 was a down year for him, but he was a lead tackler. And for the Packers, they're very familiar with that because they had Blake Martinez before, who led the Packers in tackles, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a quality linebacker. Now, I will say Zaire Franklin can definitely fly around, move around, and pairing him up with Adrian Cooper is definitely a good thing. I think those two can definitely cause some havoc, and it'll be very interesting to see. Now, this does mean that the Green Bay Packers are moving away from Quay Walker. Not surprising here. I think that the Packers not picking up his fourth or fourth year option it shows that the Packers definitely not going to keep Quay Walker and they're going to let him go in free agency. The next move, which was today on Monday, March 9th, the Packers made the trade to get rid of Rashawn Gary. Now, this was very surprising for Packer fans and Packer land. Rashawn Gary was a guy who just never lived up to the expectation to what he should have been. He had a couple good years with the Packers and signed that mega deal after getting 8 or 9 sacks, I believe it was, back in 2022. And yeah, he just never lived up to the hype. Sadly, because he had so much potential. He was fast off the edge in his early ages. He had quite a few injuries, but last year was just a down year overall. He did not look like he wanted to compete, let alone be on the field. So with the Packers, they could have released him, and honestly, the Packers could have got nothing here, but the Cowboys came in and saved the Packers and gave them a 2027 fourth round pick. Plus the Packers, they save 11 million in cap space, which this is huge because going into free agency, the Packers did not have any sort of money to sign anybody in free agency. So having $11 million in cap space was definitely huge for the Packers. And yeah, with the Packers, it's very interesting because today as well on Monday, they lose Kingsley Enagbare, another edge. So the Packers lose 2 edges and a defensive tackle, and what was the defensive line having quite a bit of depth is now becoming pretty thin. So now you have Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Lucas Van Ness. I know he's more of an edge. Micah Parsons, of course, an edge, but you can kind of slot him around wherever. Warren Brinson, the fourth round pick, who did show some glimpses last year, he's gonna have to step up. But honestly, with Gary gone and Enagbare gone, this is Lucas Van Ness's time to either rise or fall. And this is going to be his year. He's going to absolutely have to show something that he's the first round draft pick for a reason. And pairing him up with Micah Parsons, I mean, it can definitely be trouble, but the Packers their defense is definitely thin. And with them making these moves, it just makes me think that there is something in the works. Now, I know that they were interested in potentially getting Jordan Davis from the Eagles or Jalen Carter even. That is true. I just don't know if it's going to happen. I'm not sure if they have the capital to do so. But yeah, Lucas Van Ness definitely going to have to step up with Enagbare and Rashawn Gary gone. And Micah Parsons isn't going to be starting, I don't think, week 1 or 2, possibly for the Packers. So Lucas Van Ness is definitely going to have a lot of pressure on him and these younger guys like Carl Brooks. Warren Brinson, as mentioned before. So it'll be interesting to see what Gannon does on the defensive side of the football with these guys now gone. As mentioned, the Packers definitely interested in some free agents, as mentioned before. Jalen Carter, I mean, I think he could be a really good fit for the Green Bay Packers. He's a big body up front. His pass deflections are very critical. He had 7 of them, I think, last season. So, a guy like that, a big body who can stop the run, that's what the Packers are about. It's building to stop the run. And yeah, it'd be a good nose tackle, obviously, with the Packers. I mean, they got Devontae Wyatt, but just having big bodies up front definitely helps. And another guy who has a connection to Jonathan Gannon, and that is Dalvin Tomlinson from the Cardinals. He is a 32-year-old vet. You could sign him for cheap money, I believe. Reunite him with Jonathan Gannon. It does make sense. He has a big body that you could just throw up front. He can be serviceable. Maybe he's not durable. Maybe he might get injured during the season, or he may not be able to play a lot of snaps. But he has a big body. Maybe on third down, you can throw in there, and he can stop the run for you. So the Packers need to get some bodies on the D line, as they are definitely taking a hit in the free agency day one only. So with that being said, drop a comment below with the free agent you want your team to sign. There's been a lot of teams being active today, losing guys, signing guys. Teams like the Titans are making big splashes, and notable surprises going around all around the league. So drop a comment below. I want to hear your guys' teams and what if they're making moves. If you want them to sign somebody, I'm all ears. I want to hear it and interact with you guys. So with that being said, the Packers, as this time of recording, actually released Elton Jenkins. So that is a big move, as expected as well. The Packers now free up $19 million with that release of Elton Jenkins. The Packers did just sign Sean Ryan to a 3-year, $11 million per year contract, making him in the top 6 of centers being highest paid. My initial thought is it's a little bit much for Sean Ryan. I don't think he's worth that much, but I do understand it at the same time. The Packers definitely have to maintain their offensive line. I believe now they would have Josh Morgan on the left tackle, Aaron Banks, left guard, Sean Ryan as center, Belton as right guard, and blanking on the right tackle. With that being said, yeah, the Packers are definitely have a new offensive line heading into 2026, which is going to be very interesting to see. A lot of younger guys, but I fully believe that they're capable of holding up. And will they be better than last season? I think it's possible, but it'll definitely take some time. I don't expect them to come out week 1 and 2 to just perform really well. A lot of chemistry has to be built and communication has to be built. So I could definitely see at first this line struggling, but I do see them eventually. The Packers are known for building good lines. So overall, I'm not really concerned with that. It's just a matter of it taking time. Now, these games are all important because, this season there are some tougher games to say, so you definitely don't want your line struggling in those games. But nonetheless, Packers releasing Elton Jenkins, not surprising, but frees up cap space and gives them now $30 million in cap to work with. So, yeah, Elton Jenkins was a big part of Green Bay. Great center, great tackle. I mean, absolutely just so serviceable in Green Bay. I mean, I loved him as a tackle. He seemed like a nice guy, great guy. I mean, loved his time here in Green Bay. But nonetheless, when you're running low on cap space, you got to do what you got to do and cut some players. And he was a unfortunate victim of that. With that $30 million, though, I do want to mention that the Packers too need some guys on defense, and especially the edge position, defensive tackle, and cornerback, like I had mentioned before. I had written down some names, but as the day went on, all those names were basically being taken, and the cornerback position, I had Alontae Taylor, but he signed with the Titans to like a 3-year, $60 million deal. That's a little bit too much. I mean, for my asking, I knew the number would be high, but not that high. So the Titans definitely making a splash at corner, but Alontae Taylor was a guy that I wanted the Packers to try and maybe get, but the number was definitely too high then. So the next guy I wanted was Jamel Dean, a guy the Packers have played multiple times on the Buccaneers. Good corner. I kind of thought his time in Tampa, he was looking a little older, but he's only 29 years old. But unfortunately, the Steelers signed him, and they did get him for a good deal at 36 million over 3 years, so roughly 12 million a year. Yeah, I mean Jamel Dean, good corner. I liked him, and he unfortunately went to the Steelers. One guy that has not been taken yet, at least to my knowledge at this current time recording, is Greg Newsome. He was traded from the Browns to the Jaguars, and I don't think the Jaguars are going to re-sign him. So maybe it's possible the Packers could get him at a low cost and get a cornerback because they desperately need one. Keyshawn Nixon as your one. You have Carrington Valentine back there. Nate Hobbs may or may not be back. Who knows with that situation? Um, yeah, the Packers desperately need a cornerback. So I'm curious to see what they do if they do go try and get one or draft one. Packers need to do something at corner because that last season was inexcusable. But the Packers, interestingly enough, two names that, well, I knew one of them they were gonna maybe lose, but the other one I don't know. I didn't think that he was even available, and that being Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks. Jaden Reed is apparently being called on by teams. I don't think the Packers, to my knowledge, are interested in trading him, and they aren't really, taking serious offers on him. Now, the only thing that concerns me about this is, of course, it's the NFL. Of course, a team can come up with the package, and you might like it. And Jaden Reed is such a critical value to this Packers offense. You play him in the slot, play him outside, play him, behind the line of scrimmage in the backfield. Um, he's just really fast, serviceable, and if a team comes by and gives you the right package, who says you're going to turn it down, right? So, if the right package comes by, do you let Jaden Reed go and take the value? I mean, that's the only thing that concerns me with that. I don't think the Packers will trade him though, but you never know. You never know with the NFL. The other guy I mentioned was Dontavian Wicks. Now, Dontavian's story in Green Bay is honestly kind of sad because he started off really hot. I mean, he had some great hands in Green Bay and then kind of had a rough couple of years dropping footballs, not being included on plays, especially last year. He had a great game in Detroit. You saw what he could be catching footballs that were tough, great hands, just an incredible receiver, great route runner. And ever since Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, he just could never get involved on the offense, which was the unfortunate part about Wicks, was he just wasn't, I guess, reliable enough for Matt LaFleur to put him in on the play and have a play drawn up for him, which is unfortunate, really, because I like Dontavian Wicks. Now, I do see him as kind of a liability out there with, is he going to drop the football? Is he going to be active enough? Targets. I like him, but his time in Green Bay might be up, and there I could see Dontavian going elsewhere, but that's not much of a surprise to me, as his time in Green Bay was just not the best. But yeah, he's definitely a good receiver for the most part, and as I mentioned before, Romeo Dobbs, another receiver who is basically as good as gone. He's definitely going to sign elsewhere, and he's looking at maybe I'm seeing numbers from low as 12 million per year to even up to 20. So with the market right now, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. It's people are getting bags. So honestly, I couldn't tell you. I just saw Josh Naylor earlier today. I think he got 11 million per year. So Romeo Dobbs could easily get over 15, I think, depending on the team. So Romeo, definitely his time in Green Bay is gone, but that just means more Matthew Golden time in Green Bay, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, Reed. So Romeo definitely going elsewhere. That's not a surprise there at all. But before I wrap up today's show, I just want to go over some notable trades around the league. I mentioned some earlier, but there are some crazy trades going around today that just are definitely important. And I know this week, uh, Thursday, Nick and I are going to go over some of these trades more in depth. And also by then, there's probably going to be tons and tons of more trades. So stay tuned for that. But with that being said, earlier, before the free agency deadline, Max Crosby was traded to the Ravens for 2 first-round draft picks. And the reason I bring this up is because we had rumors about the Bears getting him, potentially the Lions making a splash for him, and he's not in the NFC North. So he's actually in the AFC North. So thank God for that. Thank God as a Packers fan, we don't have to see Max Crosby in the NFC North. But yeah, I don't know if the Bears were actually going to pay that much for Max Crosby. It is a lot of value. So I mean, Max Crosby is definitely worth that, but I don't see the Lions or Bears making a splash that much for him. And good for the Ravens. I mean, they definitely need pressure, like with Max Crosby. So it's a good pickup for them. But I know Nick and I will talk about it later this week, about what this means for the NFC North, no Max Crosby, and what the other teams need in this division. The other trade that was noted was DJ Moore, who had sent out his goodbye to Chicago. I know I mentioned in this season that DJ Moore, I just don't see him being a Chicago Bear in 2026 season, and that has come true. DJ Moore was traded to the Buffalo Bills, and this was honestly a good move for both sides. I think the Buffalo Bills needed a number one receiver as Keon Coleman and Gabe Davis, weren't cutting it over in Buffalo, and Josh Allen finally gets his number one receiver. So, he didn't have a number one receiver since Stephon Diggs. So definitely a good move for Buffalo getting DJ Moore. I mean, he's still a solid receiver, and Chicago getting, I believe it was a second round 2026 or 7 draft pick, if I recall correctly. But nonetheless, I mean, it was a good move for Chicago. So I mean, they're moving on to a younger core, and this means more Rome Odunze and Luther Burden and Javante Walker. So it'll be interesting to see with the young receiving core how they do. You still got Loveland over there, Komet. So it'll be very, very interesting. And I'm really intrigued by the Chicago Bears wide receiver core as they're younger now. I mean, DJ Moore was a great veteran presence, and he brought a lot to the team, as of course he put 2 daggers in my Green Bay Packers. So don't have to deal with that anymore. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what this season looks like for the Chicago Bears offense now that DJ Moore is gone. But just some other trades, just to note, I'm going to go over them very quickly. I'm not going to go into depth about them, but Tua was released by the Falcons. Jeff Hafley rebuilding Miami, and he starts off with releasing Tua and Minka Fitzpatrick. And as I thought, Malik Willis goes to Miami on a 3-year, $67.5 million contract. So Jeff Hafley gets his quarterback in Malik Willis. And the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams today were very active. I mean, they re-signed Cam Curl, their safety, to a 3-year, $36 million contract. But then they also bring in both of the Chiefs' cornerbacks and signs Trent McDuffie to a 4-year, $124 million contract, and Jalen Watson to a 3-year, $51 million contract. So they're building up that defense. I mean, they're going all in as they should. I mean, they're going to be a threat this season. I mean, that defense is looking better and better. And the question all around the league was, where is Kenneth Walker going? And Kenneth Walker goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. I was about to say another team for some reason. Goes to the Chiefs on a 3-year, $48 million deal. So it's good for Kenneth Walker. And this one was very interesting from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're building something over there, but I'm questioning so much because we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. And they trade for Michael Pittman. They got Michael Pittman from the Indianapolis Colts right after the Colts re-signed Alec Pierce to a 4-year, $114 million contract. They give Michael Pittman a 3-year, $59 million contract. So they pair him up with DK Metcalf. And in my head, I'm thinking that's a pretty good receiver core. I mean, very threatening, but who's throwing them the ball? So we'll have to wait and see what happens in Pittsburgh. I'm intrigued now as they added some key pieces on defense as well, but very interesting stuff. And the New York Giants have been active as well. They lost a lot of players on their secondary, but then they also added a big key piece on offense in Isaiah Likely from the Ravens. They got their number one tight end, it looks like. Likely, I liked him over in the Ravens, no pun intended. But he's a good player. I mean, very versatile. I like him. He's a good catch. He definitely has hands. So I do like him over in New York. It'd be interesting to see how Harbaugh uses him. And the Chicago Bears will go more into depth about this. Made two signings today in signing safety Kobe Bryant from the Seattle Seahawks, and they also signed Devin Bush from the Cleveland Browns. Two positions they needed, and they addressed them both. And unfortunately, in my opinion, they knocked him out of the park. So we'll go more into depth about that this Thursday. And last but not least, the one that really shocked a lot of people, Mike Evans leaving Tampa Bay, going to the 49ers on a 3-year, $60 million contract. I like this. For the Brock Purdy, gets his number one receiver. You got Juwan Jennings over there. You're going to move off of Ayuk. It'll be another passing attack from the 49ers. So very intrigued by that. But with that being said, that wraps up this emergency episode, but trust me, Thursday's episode is going to be wild. We'll break down even more free agency chaos, the trades that could shake up the entire division, and I'm excited to see what Nick has to say about all of this. But make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and follow me on Twitter at msteps_. You won't want to miss it.